on shore, hundreds of students affected by the deadly storm are being accommodated in schools here in New Providence and across the country. Good morning, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis, and welcome to our continued coverage of Hurricane Dorian search and recovery. As you begin your day, we have patchy clouds in the mix of a sunny day. Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean has a complete weather check.
This weather report is sponsored by Bank of the Bahamas, the bank of solutions.
Good morning, LaDawn. Our ZNS Tower Cam overlooking eastern New Providence. It's showing some buildups, which will generate some downpours during the course of today. But over the southeast Bahamas, we have a very broad area of showers and thunderstorms. And this area is associated with an area of low pressure at the surface interacting with an upper level trough. And together, it has about a 50% chance of developing over time. That is, over the next 5 days or so, that will bump up to about 70% as this area moves northwest across the central and northwestern Bahamas. Once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, we expect it to develop into either a tropical depression or some sort of tropical cyclone. But nevertheless, heavy rains will accompany the system as it treks westward and over the course of today and tomorrow. Heavy showers and thunderstorms leading to flooding in low-lying areas. Outside of our studios, partly cloudy skies, temperature 79 degrees, your relative humidity 81%. East-northeast winds at 10 miles per hour. The barometric pressure 1,012.3 millibars. That's 29.89 inches, and it is steady. Temperatures around the islands, 80 degrees in Marsh Harbor, Grand Turtle Key at 79. 79 also in Freeport, Grand Bahama, 82 in the Berry Islands. Alistown, Bimini, 83 degrees. 82 in Harper Island, Roxanne, Eleuthera 81, Staniel Key 81 degrees, Otterstown, Cat Island 80, 81 in Kemps Bay, South Andros, Fresh Creek and Central Andros at 81 degrees, 80 in San Salvador and Rum Key, in Ragged Island, Clarencetown, Long Island, and Crooked Island 80 degrees as well, Betsy Bay, Maguana, and Acklands 81 degrees, 81 in Matitani, Nagua, the Turks and Caicos Islands at 83 degrees. Your boating forecast for today in the northwestern islands, northeast to east winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 4 to 7 feet over the ocean. Your high tide, that will take place at 6:27 this morning, low tide at 12:35 in the afternoon. And for the central and southeastern islands, southeast winds 10 to 15 knots, but they will be gusting near showers and thunderstorms. Wave heights 2 to 4 feet higher in gusts. And that's going to do it for your boating forecast. The forecast for today and tonight is still ahead.
Thanks a lot, Basil. Meanwhile, our Lloyd Allen in the morning team is standing by with the Bahamas First traffic report.
The traffic report is sponsored by Bahamas First. First in insurance, today, tomorrow.
Good morning, LaDawn. Good morning, Bahamas. Well, it's a wet morning this morning here on University Drive. We expect that this area will, of course, build with traffic as many drivers are expected to traverse this area heading to the Kendall Geologic Gymnasium, where registration will take place this morning for many displaced students from the areas of Abaco and Grand Bahama as a result of Hurricane Dorian. Now, one thing I would definitely like to advise drivers of, this traffic light right here behind me, because of power outages, we've been told that this light has been in and out, so drivers are advised to approach with caution. It's a four-way stop, and so you definitely want to be aware of that as you're moving along roads here. Another thing, of course, the roads are wet, and so, of course, you do definitely want to drive with safety. This is a high pedestrian area. What we've been told is that the traffic, the speed limit in this area is around 30 to 35 miles per hour, and that's something you definitely want to be aware of. Also this morning we have Sergeant Jerome Thompson, who is giving us some tips for drivers and pedestrians. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. How are you?
Good morning to you. Good morning, Bahamas.
Excellent. So what can you advise drivers, pedestrians of this morning in this area and as they travel around New Providence?
Well, for the drivers, as you can see, we have wet conditions. So I'll ask you to drive 3 to 5 miles below your normal speed, below the normal speed limit, to give you a chance to brake properly in case of a hazard. And in terms of pedestrians, they need you to be alert. You need to make eye contact with drivers before crossing the streets, crossing on the pedestrian crossings.
All right, and so of course we know that several students are also returning to school last week. Several students would have returned to the University of the Bahamas, and of course, what advice would you have for pedestrians even as they move around this area?
They need to have extra caution when crossing the street, when entering the roadway, because we don't want them to cause any injuries to themselves. Drivers, we need you to be mindful of the little ones, because a lot of small kids, they walk by themselves. And they're very innocent, very inexperienced, so we need you to be mindful of those pedestrians, especially the young ones.
All right, so you heard it first. And so, of course, that's our initial traffic report. LaDawn, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Lloyd. Now on to our top story this morning. Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, listing initiatives the government has targeted to ensure that rapid recovery and restoration takes place on Grand Bahama and Abaco after Hurricane Dorian hit those islands a week ago. During a national address last night, the nation's leader made it clear that the Bahamas and Bahamians will recover from what he described as a generational tragedy. Here's Altavis Munnings.
We are a nation in mourning. The grief is unbearable following the devastating impact of Hurricane Dorian.
Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, in his national address on Hurricane Dorian Wednesday night, noted that there are no words to describe this generational tragedy. The Prime Minister confirmed the hurricane's official death toll as of September 9th was 42 in Abaco and 8 in Grand Bahama, totaling 50 people.
There are many who are still missing. The number of deaths is expected to significantly increase. The grief we will bear as a country begins with the families who have lost loved ones. To those who have lost loved ones, I know there's absolutely nothing we can say that will lessen your pain and your loss. Our sympathies go out to the families of each person who died. Let us pray for them during this time of grief. We offer you our shoulders to cry on, our prayers of comfort, and our promise that your loved ones will never be forgotten.
The Prime Minister declared that as horrible and vicious as the storm was to Grand Bahama and Abaco, the resilience and bravery of the Bahamian people was more powerful. He underscored the spirit of courage and bravery to the Bahamians that volunteered to rescue residents. And with that in mind, the Prime Minister plans to activate prayer across the country.
I have asked the Christian Council to plan a national prayer service. We will also have a national day of mourning. We will need as many spiritual resources as we will need physical resources to rebuild lives and to recover. Flags are to be flown at half-mast on all public buildings to mourn our dead.
The Prime Minister admitted that some challenges were experienced that slowed down the recovery process, but he maintains government has propelled its restoration exercise to ensure hurricane victims receive all the care they need. He further declared that security is no longer a challenge in Abaco, as hundreds of Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Force officers were deployed before and after the storm.
Our Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Force officers have been providing round-the-clock efforts to search for and rescue Bahamians and residents in distress. Many of these officers stationed on Abaco were saving and protecting others, even though they lost their homes and all of their possessions. First responders at our hospitals and clinics and those dispensing relief aid have saved lives and lessened the hardship of those who lost everything.
The Prime Minister thanked the domestic, regional, and international sector, including United States President Donald Trump and his government, the United Nations, and the Caribbean community for their overwhelming support for an event that no living Bahamian has ever seen. Prime Minister Minnis concluded his national address that we must call on the Lord of Life to grant us the courage, fortitude, and spirit of love and hope to rebuild our country. Altavis Munnings, ZNS Network News.
We have heard about rescue teams, police keeping law and order, relief efforts, and now recovery in the wake of Hurricane Dorian. But what about the medical professionals who were providing quality health care to victims injured in that storm? We caught up with two medical doctors who were on the ground at the Marsh Harbor Abaco Clinic, saving lives, and had to be relocated to the capital after losing almost everything. Dr. Nadia and William Hamilton were among 4 healthcare officers stationed at the Marsh Harbor Community Clinic that provided top-notch healthcare services to dozens of victims injured by Hurricane Dorian. For Dr. Nadia Hamilton, the deadliest storm in the country's history was her first experience, and she says losing everything they own while on call to preserve life was traumatizing.
The housing where we stay, the residences attached to the clinic, also became compromised. Water was filling the rooms, the tiles, the doors. I mean, it was just devastation. The windows were shattering, and my colleagues and I, because quite a few of us were on the hill, definitely experienced some trauma just from being there and having to actually try to get out alive, then to help the persons of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and specifically the Marsh Harbor area.
Hamilton says she, along with her husband, had to risk their lives to get to the Marsh Harbor Clinic, which wasn't too far from where they lived. But she says the team had to put duty first and provide the best care.
We had just about every form of trauma you can think of. It ranged from head injuries, deep lacerations, abrasions, fractures, everything. Because for the persons who were involved, or the stories that we would have gotten because we would have been in the clinic, it was just, the debris was everywhere. Roofs were falling in on people and their kids. And so that is the result, but those were the patients that were presenting to us.
But while battling that, a culprit broke into their home and took their belongings before they got a chance to retrieve what was left. With time passing and medical concerns mounting, Nadia recalls breathing a deep sigh of relief for the critical care patients when international help arrived.
We had our fair share of critical patients, and for that we are very grateful for the U.S. Coast Guard because they were the first ones on the ground to help get those critical patients out. We were never so happy to see pilots dressed in their helmets and saying, hey, we're your critical patients. My knees went weak. We didn't know they were coming. Our hurricane supply was on the ground, and the administrative team ensured that it was there for us to use. By the time we were getting ready to leave, which was about 4 days into that storm, I would say that we were getting low on supplies, but again, the volunteers were bringing in more supplies. The government at that point had sent in another relief team, and supplies were coming in with them. So I would say for the time that we were there, we had enough supplies to take care of what was happening on the ground.
Her husband, Dr. William Hamilton, said while every patient is a priority, ensuring that every injured child got the best health care possible topped the list of priorities.
The conditions that they had were just as grave as adult injuries. And again, with the resources we had, we were able to stabilize until we were able to get help from our international partners, being the U.S. Coast Guards and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And then also, I can't forget the Global Support Development Team. They actually came in with their own physician, Dr. Court, and their paramedic, and came with a load of healthcare, medication, etc., to beef up what we had on the ground already.
Meanwhile, health services in Grand Bahama should be up to capacity as it were before Hurricane Dorian battered that island more than a week ago. Health Minister Dr. The Honorable Dwayne Sand says with the assistance of many medical agencies, the focus now is to ensure residents receive primary health care services.
Has to have supplemental services provided. So Samaritan's Purse is operating on the grounds of IAT across the street from the Rand. We have other facilities going up at East Grand Bahama. The West End Clinic is up. Hawksbill Creek Clinic is functional. The Pierce Plaza facility will be up. We realize that people need to get health services, and many people have lost cars. So you can't walk 10 miles to get to a clinic. And so what we're trying to do now is to have strategic locations for primary health care services and then adequate transportation to get people who would need definitive care.
And with services at the Princess Margaret Hospital already stretched by Hurricane Dorian, the 5,000 plus evacuees presents a greater demand on the services. Dr. Sands explains what is being done to meet the growing demand.
Your hospital facility now cannot stay on emergency mode. We have been accumulating an unmet need. And so we're not only focused on those islands, but we have to strengthen our core or premier health facility. And we're going to do that with the assistance of our international partners, inclusive of equipment and supplies. Bahamian people will know that we have 4 ambulances that were brought in yesterday. 2 of those ambulances are going to be flown by the U.S. Coast Guard to Grand Bahama. That gives you an idea of the level of cooperation, partnership, and support that we've experienced. We're having another 11 ambulances brought in to the Bahamas so that we can strengthen our ability to respond to people in need.
And when we come back, our Lloyd Allen joins us live from the Kendall Isaacs Gym to talk about student registration. All of that and more when Hurricane Search and Recovery continues. Welcome back. Hundreds, if not thousands, of janitors, students, and teachers displaced as a result of Hurricane Dorian will flock to the Kendall Jill Isaacs Gymnasium today to register. Lloyd Allen is standing by with the Director of Education to tell us more about the registration process. Lloyd, what's the latest?
Good morning again, LaDawn. This morning, I'm here now at the Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium, where in just a few hours, we expect that registration will begin for more than 2,000 up to about 3,000 students displaced now from the areas of Abaco and Grand Bahama as a result of the hurricane. I have here this morning with me as well the Deputy Director of Education, Mr. Julian Anderson. Good morning, Mr. Anderson. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Fine, thanks.
Excellent. So this morning, what is the ministry expecting as far as you get started with this registration process?
We're expecting those areas of those students from Grand Bahama and Abaco that have been affected by the storm to register. But we must emphasize that we have a schedule, and we are asking that those persons that are not in shelters, please contact these numbers, 502-3779 or 502-8319 for appointments. We have those persons in the shelters that are on a schedule to come over to the T.A. Robertson Stadium for registration, and anybody else that's not in a shelter, we emphasize that you call these numbers, 502-3779, 502-8319, where you will get an appointment for registration. We also want to say, and we are grateful to partner with other government agencies, namely the Ministry of Health, Social Services, the Ministry of Youth, Corporate Bahamas, the Ministry of Education, Psychological Association, and we're here to cater to the whole man today. We have health, where they will do the screening. We have social services, where whatever persons qualify for, they will get assistance. We have education, where we would register the child and place them in a school. We also have the police here. We also have the Defense Force. We have the Ministry of Youth, which will be responsible for recreational activities within the shelters. We are really just excited about doing our job. You talk about the adage of a village raising a child, and we are our brother's keeper. Well, today this is the application of all those adages.
Wow. And so another thing I wanted to point out this morning, I don't know if you guys can see, but behind me, there are a few persons already here who may have also been victims of that storm. What specific advice do you have for persons who may not actually be from the shelter?
We are asking those persons who are not from the shelter, and I emphasize this, call these numbers 502-3779, 502-8319, because we want to give you an appointment. We don't want you come here waiting unduly and unnecessary to get registered. We want to deal first with those persons with the shelters, and then we will ask you to call these numbers that I just listed so that you can get an application. We also want to say in our family of islands, those persons that have been displaced from Abaco and Grand Bahama, and you may have fled to a family island before the storm or after the storm, we ask that teachers and students register at the Ministry of Education's district office, where they will seek to place you. And if you're not needed in those islands, then you would be referred to head office, where we will seek to further place you.
And one final question. I know, obviously, as a result of the storm, many persons may have displaced documentation. What sort of documents are you really looking for if persons have it?
Well, this morning I'm pleased to say, and we're excited also about this, we have a register of all the students in Abaco. So if you don't have documentation, that would not be a problem, whether you're from Grand Bahama or Abaco. We will facilitate you. Our aim and objective is to have you placed in a school as soon as possible.
Excellent information. So, of course, ZNS News is going to be here as long as it takes, and just observing that process. One last time, step by step, once you begin at 9 o'clock, what is the process for those persons coming over from the gymnasium over now to the stadium?
Okay, those persons coming over from the shelter, from the Kendall Isaacs gymnasium, they will be the first persons that will be dealt with this morning. They will come in, they will do their screening with Ministry of Health, they will go to education, they will be registered in a school, they will go to social services, and I'm also pleased to announce that we have Corporate Bahamas that will be here giving out school supplies to students this morning.
All right, excellent information. And of course, we're here at the Thomas A. Robinson National Stadium. Of course, Lloyd Allen, ZNS Network News.
Thanks a lot, Lloyd. Former Member of Parliament for North Abaco and former Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram, touring his former constituency yesterday. The political giant visiting Green Turtle Key, Marsh Harbor, and the Grand Key communities. Just some of the communities receiving significant damage during the recent monstrous storm. Ingram was joined by former Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Right Honorable Perry Christie. Christie believes former MP Ingram should lead the charge in the restoration of Abaco and adds that a legal entity should be established to monitor hurricane relief efforts. Both men agree that the Bahamas has not experienced anything of this magnitude and that Prime Minister Hubert Minnis has the opportunity to respond positively to this crisis.
Prime Minister Minnis has the opportunity to have all sorts of resources made available to him from the Americans, the Canadians, the British, the Canadians, the Japanese, the Dutch, the rest of it, etc., the private sector, the Bahamas, etc. So it has nothing to do with him personally. He has the ability to be able to corral all that together, and our private sector, and the political directors we have in the Bahamas, those of us like myself and Mr. Christie and others who previously served, etc., to be able to tackle this task.
Descendants of Abaco have partnered with the Marathon Cares disaster relief team to distribute food, clothing, and other essential items to thousands of victims affected by Hurricane Dorian on that island. The team plans to make a second trip to that island later this week. Volunteer of Marathon Cares, Clarence Albury, says he traveled to the island last week bearing hurricane relief supplies for his family. But when he got there, the devastation was so severe that he had to assist other victims from the North Abaco community.
So I was able to take a charter flight with another cousin to get to Treasure Key Airport. Once we got there, we were able to take a boat because we couldn't go by car. So I took a boat to take the supplies that we took and just to go see the area, Cooperstown, Blackwood, Fire Road. We weren't able to get further than that because the bridge that connects Cooperstown to Little Abaco, that completely collapsed. So it's impassable by car. And all of this we didn't know at the time because there was no information here in Nassau about what was going on in North Abaco. There were no images. So basically the people from that area who are living in New Providence or living abroad had no idea, how their families fared, what was going on the ground, or were their houses still standing, nothing. So what we did, we took some supplies. And so what those of us from North Abaco, what we've been trying to do is we've been gathering together to try to figure out how we can get supplies to that area. Because when I got to Treasure Key, they did have a little area sectioned off for where supplies were, but it wasn't a whole lot. It was just some water, some Pampers, and some small canned goods and stuff.
Albury says the need for supplies are in great demand as they're limited on that island. He is asking for Bahamians and anyone under the sound of his voice to donate to those victims.
Everyone has been asking for water. Everyone has been asking for cleaning supplies. Most persons, we have elderly persons down in the North Abaco who are on medication. And of course, you have those needs where you have sugar diabetes, you have persons who have kidney issues, we have persons who have heart issues, and so these are all the people that we were thinking about, right? And so we couldn't just sit here in Grand Bahama and sort of wait for, the central government to figure it out. We just got together as a group and as a community to just try to get some kind of relief, and we're still working on that actively, trying to charter flights and get boats who can take us to go to these islands. Because most of my family, I grew up in Abaco, grew up in Cooperstown and Grand Key, and so I think some persons have already gone back to Grand Key to sort of see what's happening and how they can help. Thankfully, the northern areas did not sustain as much damage structurally as Treasure Key and Marsh Harbor and Grand Bahama area. So a lot of those structures are still standing.
Meantime, the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, is just one of the many organizations on the ground in the Bahamas since the passage of Hurricane Dorian, providing humanitarian aid in its aftermath. ZNS News spoke with officials from the organization that has also been helping with search and rescue efforts a few days ago. John Morrison, Public Information Officer for the Fairfax County Urban Search and Rescue Team and a part of USAID, explained that the organization that sent a 57-man team to assist with search efforts intended to comb the area on the ground in Abaco and also use helicopters to get the far-reaching areas.
The logistics of moving things is very challenging. So with roads washed out, bridges washed out, moving people and going around the island is very difficult. So we'll be using whatever resources we can through both the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard to move our people around the island to make sure that we can get to places that have not yet been rescued or seen. We have everything from light hand tools to breaking equipment, breaching equipment for heavy concrete, torches for any metal that we may come upon, saws, whatever kind of construction is out there, we're able to rescue people from it.
Colbert Clariciere, a Hurricane Dorian survivor, says after the storm that wiped out Haitian enclaves, the Mud and Pigeon Peas on Abaco, he believes he will go to Haiti and never return. Clariciere, who sported a swollen leg after it was injured during the storm, has lived in the Bahamas some 44 years. The Abaco resident, who managed to escape death while many were not so lucky, says Dorian may have broken up his home, but it has not broken him despite its destruction.
Pigeon Peas I live in. Yeah. I can break all house. All house. Yeah, I can. He broke everything. Everything. He broke everything. He made Pigeon Peas bad. 20 people died. 20 people died. I can kill him, 20 people.
Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for Fox Hill, Chanel Ferguson, giving the heart-wrenching details of the conditions of victims of Hurricane Dorian who appeared when they entered the Fox Hill Community Center last week Friday. Ferguson says the first batch of evacuees was about 50, and then it rose to about 240 in a matter of hours. While the center is unable to accommodate any more evacuees due to its space limit, Ferguson says she is thankful for the team of medical professionals that were brought in to render assistance to the distressed victims.
Issues that they needed to deal with, just emotional issues. People saw their family members die. One young man talked about how 4 of his family members died right in front of him. We have another gentleman who had just completed everything and got a visa to bring his 14-year-old son here, and the son hadn't been here more than a few weeks, and he died. Not 14 months, 14-year-old son died. And so these are hard things for people to deal with, very difficult things. But we're blessed to have psychologists, psychiatrists, and medical doctors. We have a pharmacist, and really good nurses.
Welcome back. With Bahamas Power and Light doing frequent load shedding, Royal Bahamas Police Force Fire Services officials are urging the public to be careful and to exercise caution and care when using generators. Police Chief Superintendent of Fire Services on this concern.
We've had several generator fires, but not to the extent where there have been any major components in terms of a major damage. And so we want to ensure that life is preserved, particularly in light of the fact when we're dealing with the load shedding aspect over the next few days or months ahead.
Superintendent Walter Evans also gave some safety tips on using generators.
We want to say to persons that they need to ensure that the generators are not to be fueled while they're hot. Persons ought to ensure that the persons who will be conducting the wiring, ensure that those persons are trained, they're certified, and also we want to make sure that persons do not have generators stored on the inside of the facilities or in their bedrooms where carbon monoxide, which is a deadly gas, which is emitted from fossil fuels. So we want to encourage the public at large to ensure that these basic principles are being adhered to.
The grounds of the Sandilands Rehabilitation Center are expected to come alive on Saturday, September 28th for that institution's annual fair. Part proceeds raised from the fair will go towards assisting victims of Hurricane Dorian. Public Relations Officer Patrice Roll stopped by our ZNS studios recently to give us an update on what we can expect at this year's fair and why it was so important to help our brothers and sisters in need.
We're going to make a donation to NEMA, and then we want to do something for our residents at Sandilands. We're trying to get the Serenity Garden up and going and make it accessible for patients that are in wheelchairs as well to come out and be able to do a garden and kind of self-sustain themselves with fruits and vegetables. Funds are not always available. We can't expect the government to do everything for us. So the Fair Committee decided to get together and help them to make this dream come true and allow them to have extra funds to provide extra activities for patients.
Family, friends, and members of the legal fraternity gathered at St. Agnes Anglican Church on Wednesday night to honor the life and legacy of deceased former Supreme Court Justice Emmanuel Osadabe at a memorial service. The Nigerian-born Osadabe died on August 29th at the age of 80. Among those paying tributes to the man she says had a passion for labor, law, and constitutional law was retired Justice Ruby Nottage, who says their friendship continued from the younger days, even as he moved on to experience professional success. Nottage says Osadabe's contributions to the Bahamas and the Caribbean legal through was sizable and noteworthy. She says her friend made an indelible mark on Bahamian society that will not be easy to erase.
As Shakespeare's poetry says, I come not to bury him, but to praise him. And so it is that I conclude by praising Justice Emmanuel Osadabe, a Bahamian jurist extraordinaire, worthy of praise not only for a life well lived, but in true Manny style, for forsaking all others and living a life of repute and respect within our beautiful country. Although he began as the stranger within our gates, his legacy will long live in the lives and judicial precedents of our legal system. And so I say, good night, my dear friend Manny.
Stay Close Sports is up next with Charles Fisher.
Good Thursday morning to all out there. The B3 is naming a 9-member team that will compete at the IWF World Outdoor Track and Field Championships later on this month in Qatar. Let's take a look. The ladies, Shawnee Miller, Uibo, Pedrea Seymour, Tania Gaither, and Anthony Strawn. On the men's side, Stevie Gardner, Donald Thomas, Lethorn Corley Mins, his brother Lothario Alonzo Russell. The head coach is Fritz Grant. He will be assisted by Ronald Cartwright, James Roll, and Bernard Roll. And speaking about Coach Cartwright, he will also be bestowed with the Veterans Pin during a special ceremony during the games for his more than 40 years of contribution to the sport, especially in the area of field events.
I, some years ago, think about how long I was in the sport and when it's going to happen. And all of a sudden I got a call, said, guess what? You've been honored by the IAAF. Big surprise, and I'm very, very happy about it. It means that I've been recognized. One, I've accomplished a lot of things in my lifetime to get this award. I don't think it just give it to you. I've earned it. I could imagine that I will feel great. I feel very proud. I'm being honored. I should feel good. I don't know the emotions. I will cross that bridge when I get there.
And Game 2 of the Government League Basketball Best of 5 Championships jumping last night at the AF. And the Gladstone Road Liquor Panthers, already up 1-0, jumped out to an early 27-24 lead on the reigning champs Olivia's Guesthouse Cyborgs after 1. Second quarter, back and forth, and a dandy of a ball game. We are even at 46 all. Third quarter, the champs found their rhythm and started to knock down the shots from all over. And they go on a 10-zip run to lead 74-64 heading into the final frame. And in that final quarter, it was the Cyborgs holding off the Panthers 91-84 to even things up at 1-1 and make this a best of 3 championships. Kadario Pinder led 6 Panthers in double figures with 18 points, 14 rebounds. Eugene Bain also with 18. Georgia Walks 14. Ernest Sanders and Dawson Baker 11 each. And Brian Tucker Bain with 10.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank God for the win and ask the Lord to continue to guide and protect those people in Freeport and Abaco. We know coming in, we was playing a good team. They're very hungry. We couldn't allow ourselves to go down 2-0 in a best of 5 series. That's a very, very good team. It would have been hard for us to fight back. So we regrouped ourselves last night in practice, and we told ourselves this was a do-or-die game for us. So that's how we came out and played. But they came out and they gave us their best shot the first 2 quarters. But we told the guys all game, just relax ourselves and our time will come. The table was going to turn. And as you see, when the table turned, we went on a 10-0 run and we got the game below open from there.
We lost the dark and bullshit. We get out of character. We didn't do what some of the things we usually do. So it wasn't too bad. You know, we'll be back next game.
Another honor for Jonquel Jones as she garnered 42 votes to be named to the WNBA's All-Defensive First Team, leading the league in block shots at 2 per game. Congratulations to her. Now, Jones and the Connecticut Sun are awaiting their semi-final playoff opponent. By the way, all ticket sales in that game will go towards Hurricane Dorian relief efforts. Our senior men's national soccer team, fresh off their 2-1 win Monday against Bonaire in Nations League Cup place at the Thomas A. Robertson Stadium, now gets ready to head to the British Virgin Islands next month. And according to head coach Nestle Jean, some adjustments will definitely be made.
There is a few players we have that's missing. One of the players is Leslie St-Fleur, who will be added to this team. We also have guys like Ambry Moss, who has not been here for a while. Very good player, so we're looking forward to bringing a few more guys in.
Sometimes playing on the road can be almost easier because all you have to do is focus on football. When you're here, you know, you have family and friends and, you know, some of that stuff kind of clouding it, but when you go on the road, it's just completely football. So sometimes it can almost be easier playing on the road, but yeah, you go into somebody else's backyard and you got to deal with their the way they host you and how their crowd and fans are, which, you know, is something you always have to comply for every time you go away. But, you know, looking forward to it, looking forward to the challenge, and hopefully looking forward to winning that game as well.
Good luck to Team Bahamas once again next month in the British Virgin Islands. And that's going to do it for Sports Thursday. Thanks for watching. I know you're wondering about this weather out there, so Basil is going to come right back along with LaDawn and tell you just what to expect.
In our final look at whether we have a tropical wave in the far eastern Atlantic, has about a 30% chance of development, will be moving towards the west at about 10 to 15 miles per hour, and it will be about 10 days before it gets into our area, so we would not spend too much time on that system. But right on our doorsteps, we have this area of low pressure over the southeast Bahamas, and that's been sitting there now for the past couple of days, generating heavy showers and thunderstorms. As you can see, Inagua is in the mix, also Mayaguana, Crooked Island, Acklands, and some portions of Long Island, southern Long Island, getting some of those showers as well. Now, this system is expected to move toward the northwest over the next couple of days, cutting through the central Bahamas and eventually in the northwest Bahamas by Friday night. And as it does so, heavy showers and thunderstorms will impact all of these islands, leading to flooding in those low-lying areas. So we ask you to exercise extreme caution and take the necessary precaution to protect your properties. And in terms of percentage, right now it's about a 50% chance of that developing into some kind of tropical system, but 70% overall. But that would more likely take place once the system gets into the eastern Gulf of Mexico over the weekend, Saturday or Sunday thereabout. We could see some tropical system developing. But the bottom line is, whether it develops in our area or not, heavy showers will be the order today with some thunderstorms in the mix. The forecast calls for periods of clouds and sunshine, breezy with heavy showers and thunderstorms, particularly around the noon hour and early afternoon. We'll get another round of heavy showers, get a little break, and then by evening those showers will return again. High temperature today will struggle to get up to 86 degrees, and that's because of the heavy cloud cover and the rains keeping you below that 90-degree mark. And then tonight we're looking at cloudy conditions once again. Those heavy showers will return, particularly during the early morning hours. 79 degrees for your low temperature, and your extended weather forecast over 7 days. We're looking at a wet weekend shaping up. Heavy showers again on Friday, some residual showers on Saturday, and then come Sunday, start to get some improvement, but lots of sunshine returning on the early part of next week. But by late next week, on Thursday, notice we're having some cloudy conditions with showers again. That will be as a result of that trough we've been talking about in the far eastern Atlantic. But on Monday, we'll start to talk about that in earnest.
Thanks a lot, Basil, and that's it for us this morning. See you right back here tomorrow for more coverage of Hurricane Dorian, search and recovery. For the entire Morning Edition team, I'm LaDawn Davis. Make it a great day, everyone.